Hi, everyone. So thanks very much for joining us today. I'm here with a little different spin on this series on YouTube. I'm here with the program director of one of our new IHP programs, the Rethinking Food Security. Joe Lanning is joining us direct from Athens, Georgia. So Joe, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself and your role here at SIT?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Joe Lanning, and as was mentioned, I'm the new program director for the Rethinking Food Security program. New to the program, and the program itself is new right now, but we're just getting started. I have a long background in experiential learning, study abroad, and comparative research. I started as an SIT student myself and studied abroad in Kenya a long time ago, and that experience really set me up to finish up my degree in anthropology as an undergraduate and then spend some time abroad. So after I finished my SIT program, I joined the Peace Corps and served for a few years in Malawi. And while I was there, I really started to get into food insecurity and looking at questions of hunger and access and availability. And this led me to come back after Peace Corps and study anthropology again and study agricultural decision making. So really a big focus of this IHP program is looking at agriculture, people, and politics. So my own research before taking this position as a program director, I spent 8 years working on a degree studying how smallholder farmers in rural Malawi make agricultural decisions. So it really looked at the people, at the social relationships, it looked at risk, it looked at government policies, it looked at all the different aspects that influence how somebody decides what to plant somewhere. So after I finished that degree program director and decided to build this program and really look at the core of the program, which is this idea of rethinking food security and thinking about what does it mean to the new generation and to these students that are on our programs.
Excellent. Well, thank you for taking some time. I know launching a new program can be quite busy. So I will move right along to the next question. And if you could tell us what you think makes your new IHP SIT program unique, what would that be?
Yeah, I think IHP programs themselves are all unique in their comparative aspect. When I think about study abroad and before I was really introduced to IHP, it was often a place-based program. There might have been a theme to it, but it looked at how one place addresses a specific issue or a specific discipline. And what's unique about IHP broadly is this comparative aspect, that we take a theme and we dissect it and discuss it over multiple locations. What's unique about our program is really this idea, again, of rethinking food insecurity, or food security, rather. This idea of, for a long time, food security is understood to be this relationship between the availability of food, access to it, and how folks can utilize it. And in our program, we look at that, but we look at it over multiple locations. So we see that those 3 points are not the same everywhere, and that there are a lot of nuances to how social relations, how the political situation, how the environment, how an individual's health or the health of a household, all of these different things can really impact each of those ideas. But on top of it, looking at really challenging the system that shapes our food security. So looking at food sovereignty, looking at local production, and looking at the conventional large-scale agricultural processes that some of us feel like we're maybe not empowered to do anything about, and looking at these large-scale processes and finding our place to understand and act on the issues we find are important.
Yeah, and it's a topic that even affects us here in Windham County. I think I've recently read a statistic that 1 in 10 children here in a population of only 60,000 does not have enough or adequate nutrition throughout the school year.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point right there, is the idea of measurement, right? So that's one of the other things that we've been talking about with our students a lot is how do we assess food security? And is it a measurement of hunger? Is it a measurement of the experience of psychological, emotional, and physical of not having access or utilization or availability of food? So it's really interesting to spend time with our students addressing this question of measurement and assessment, and that's a big part of what we try to look at too. Again, across multiple locations, because it plays out a little bit different in different places.
That is true. So I know your program it launches in the United States, and then during the course of the semester visits India, Italy, and Tanzania.
Yes.
So what do you think are the benefits of studying this theme there in those locations?
Yeah, so we start in the Bay Area, and in the Bay Area, it is really in terms of the United States and the history of the United States, the Bay Area and some of the areas in the Central Valley and Salinas Valley are just so important to understand if we want to understand the dynamics of food security in the United States. That's another thing that's great about IHP programs is that we look at the states as a country. We look at it as a place that can be studied with the same sort of critical eye that you might take looking at a place abroad. And also because of the diversity of the students we have. For many of our students, we often find that this period in the United States is part of their study abroad, which is really exciting. But the Bay Area, so we are able to look at this really sort of the big picture stuff in terms of comparisons between conventional large-scale agricultural production, often relying heavily on improved seed varieties and pesticides and fertilizers, and compare it to some of the smaller scale organic movements, and even some of the large scale organic movements that are going on in some place like the Salinas Valley. And then funnel that into a slightly more urban experience being in Berkeley, and seeing how the dynamics just within California in terms of activists who have very specific demands and just consumers broadly in Berkeley that have demands and interests and desires to consume certain types of foods, and how that impacts their relationship in California, and how all of California's production, agricultural production, influences some of the other places around the country that it's critically tied to. And then the students travel very, very quickly. They go across the world to Tanzania. And in Tanzania, they start by really looking at some of the same questions. We look at some of the large-scale production that's going on in Dar es Salaam, in the Morogoro area, and spend some time at an agricultural university and also working with smallholder farmers, looking at how they address these questions. How do they make decisions about what to plant, but how do they also interpret their own food insecurity? How do they act? What agency do they have to really address questions of food insecurity when they're tied into a larger market system that impacts the seeds that are available, the inputs that are available, and also the foods that actually are marketable for small scale producers. We also, while we're in Tanzania, look at relationships between pastoralists and tourism and national parks, and spend some time up in the Arusha area, really being critical about our role as travelers and as tourists, and how that relates to the food insecurity of pastoralists. The students then travel to India, and India really is an interesting place to address a question of food insecurity. To have students be at the forefront of the discussions and the criticisms and the sometimes devastating impacts of genetically modified organisms, and how that relates to what people are able to do with their lives and make decisions again about what they're able to plant, what they're able to eat. In the environment there in India where our students are, again, they look at smallholders, they look at small scale farmers, but they also do get to see some of the larger government wheels that are turning, international and domestic, in Tanzania that are shaping what people are able to do with their lives. And then we wrap up the program going to Italy. And Italy is a place that's at the forefront of the slow food movement, at a lot of the organic movement. And I think students get to see on a small scale how the food culture shapes food security. But then also at a large scale in Italy, they spend some time in Rome looking at the larger organizations, the FAO, the World Food Program, programs that really shape the interventions, and again, that assessment and measurement of food insecurity across the world.
Well, I want to sign up for the program now. Thank you for that very detailed explanation there. And I want to be like a program director who would say, okay, well, what one thing do you find most exciting about the program?
Oh, the one thing that is most exciting about the program, I would have to say, is the chance to really do this comparatively. We are in each place long enough that students get some depth and breadth in their understanding. As an anthropologist, it's really critical for me that you build rapport in the communities that you work in, and that you have a relationship with people in order to really start to understand or even start to know the right questions to ask. And so I think that what's most exciting about this program, and what would make me want to sign up for it as a student, would be this idea that I get to look critically at the same issue in lots of different places, but also still get enough depth in each place that I'm building relationships. I have people that a year after, 5 years after, 10 years after, I could go back to this place and still have a connection to a family or a lecturer or a guest speaker, an activist in India or Italy or Tanzania or Berkeley, that I have a long-term relationship with. So it's the comparative, but with some real effort to have depth as well.
Excellent. Now, as the last question today, I really want you to think from the lens of your students and just think about what you would want them to take away. If you had to name one thing about the program, what would you want them to take away from this experience clear across the world?
Yeah, the understanding of food security is an ever-evolving idea. I really love just the title of our program, Rethinking Food Security, because it isn't something that we've obviously solved the problems of, but also that students walk away with an understanding that it's not just a physical reality. It's not just the hunger and health impacts. It's not just a social reality. It's a personal, emotional reality for people as well. So to look at these questions and look at people's agency and ability to act to impact their own food security, but understand that it's in a broader game that people don't always have control in. But I would want students to really understand that they are agents. They are people who can make change and influence change. And in rethinking it, that's where we're going to get a better understanding of how all of these things play out in different environments. That there isn't just a cookie cutter way of understanding food security in a different place, but that you have to really develop those, like I said, that rapport and those relationships in different places to see the impacts of food security or food insecurity in a different place. So for students to be able to come back sort of prepared to act, interested to act, but also aware that it's an evolving theme and that they have to be researchers. They have to be people who ask better questions, and that we often don't in these kinds of studies, in these kinds of programs, we don't often get answers. We get better questions, and that we continue to move in that direction. Maybe there is an answer down the road, but until we get the right question, we're not going to get there. So, for students to really come back with that ability. The other thing that is just really important is the way we approach learning in IHP and in the Rethinking Food Security program is the learning community is what's also important. That the strength of our learning is coming from outside. It's coming from the comparative places we're looking at, but that it also comes from from the knowledge and understanding of the students and the traveling faculty and the trustees fellow and the country coordinators and the local faculty and all these people coming together as a community of learners that help get us to those better questions faster than any individual could do it. So it's just a really beautiful way of approaching these difficult questions.
Well, again, thank you very much. I'm signing up for next semester. I'm thrilled now about that. But I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule and chatting with me today.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
Cool. All right. You have a good rest of your afternoon there in Georgia.
Thanks a lot.
Try not to enjoy the weather too much. So, all right. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.